Hi, I'm Paul Nelson, and I am going to be the Zoomuse poet for Friday, May 22nd, 11 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time here in Seattle, where I live. And I'm just delighted to be part of this series of Subud poets, that it is international, that it is being sponsored by SICA International is a beautiful thing, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. On April 1st, I launched the 10th anniversary edition of my book, A Time Before Slaughter, and it includes Pig War and other songs of Cascadia. Slaughter is the original name of Auburn, Washington, originally founded as the town of Slaughter. And after a few years, they realized maybe that's not the best name for tourism. So they changed it to Auburn. And so the book is a reenactment, a serial poem reenacting the history of Auburn, Washington, and then the bioregion of Cascadia. Bioregions are nations as they might have been drawn up by nature. So our bioregion extends from Mount Logan, Alaska, all the way to Cape Mendocino, California, and inland mostly to the Continental Divide, which is divided by the Rocky Mountains. So I will be reading this serial poem, a reenactment of the history of Cascadia, this bioregion, on Friday. And just to give a sense of one of the poems in the history of Auburn, Washington, much of it history that many would like to forget. The internment of American citizens of Japanese heritage happened during World War II. Interestingly, Italians and Germans who were also part of the Axis were not put in concentration camps. So one would make the assumption that this was a race-based incarceration. The Japanese citizens handled it very well. There's a poem in the book which was their unofficial motto during World War II, Shikata ganai, dikita koto wa shikata ganai. What has been done can't be helped. But I'd like to read this poem called Elegy for Frank, about Frank Natsuhara, who was put in a concentration camp, an internment camp, until after the war, and he got his store back. He had a general goods store. And there's a line in it which alludes to an African proverb that suggests when an elder dies, it's like a library burns to the ground. Elegy for Frank. The train stopped in Slaughter one more time last week. Frank Natsuhara punched ticket, memory in Doppler rhythm, and train horns of one last goodbye. Another library, now Valley Loam. How did they save the store? How did it feel, prisoner of race? How the barbed wire, humiliation? Oh, Frank Natsuhara, how will they remember you in this, your home, this big valley? Plum petals sailing in a spring gust, juice from strawberry dripping from chin. So many of the Japanese were berry farmers in the early part of the 20th century. And so that's Elegy for Frank Natsuhara, who died. And it's really the oldest poem that's in this book. I wrote that before I realized that I was writing a serial poem. And I'm very grateful to have known him. I did buy a walk in his store once. I had the gumption to go in. And so the story of Auburn, Washington in verse, and the story of Cascadia, some events in the history of Cascadia will be those things that will be covered. I might do a tribute to Michael McClure, who died on May 4th, who was opened in Subud. And there's an article, a blog post on the SICA USA site about him, and a little bit about him describing doing the Latihan. I've written many poetry postcards in his honor. Another one is incubating today. So I think I'll end this with huge gratitude and the prayer that we all be guided during this very difficult time. And I love to see many of my Subud sisters and brothers for Zoomuse Friday, May 22nd.